صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة، ويا باب نجاة الأمة، ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة، ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم، وأمن من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي، فنفوز فوزا عظيمة. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قالوا آمنا بالله وما أنزل إلى إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق ويعقوب والأسباط وما أوتي موسى وعيسى وما أوتي النبيون من ربهم لا نفرق بين أحد منهم ونحن له مسلمون. Swing your gathering with a remembrance upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. As a gift to the soul of Sayyidi wa Mawlai, Qamar al-Ashira, Aba al-Fadl al-Abbas, recite the second salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For Allah to shower onto this congregation with His infinite mercy, compassion and forgiveness, recite the third salawat with the loudest of your voices. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. ومن كلام لسيدنا ومولانا أمير المؤمنين أنه قال: فإذا التبست عليكم الفتن كقطع الليل المظلم فعليكم بالقرآن، فإنه شافع مشفع وماحل مصدق، ومن جعله أمامه قاده إلى الجنة، ومن جعله خلفه قاده إلى النار. in an eloquent sermon, Sayyidina wa Mawlana Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muwahhideen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the commander of the faithful, and speaking in regards to the Holy Quran, states that if you were to find yourself facing tribulations and difficulties, if you find yourself surrounded by all sorts of tribulations, and if you had drowned within them like the night drowns in darkness, then seek refuge to the Holy Quran. For the Holy Quran is a shafi', it is an interceder, with an intercession that is acknowledged by the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he says, allow the Quran to be your leader. Allow the Quran to be your imam. Walk behind the teachings of the Quran so that you may conquer the highest mountains of human perfection, so that you gain victory. What prompted me to choose this particular topic that I'm going to unfold this important evening is the increasing number of stereotypes and the increasing notion of Islamophobia around the world. We find that the world today, and especially the West, has been consumed by the notion of Islamophobia. And since 9/11, this phobia against Islam and Muslims, this fear of Islam and Muslims has been on the rise. I recall when President Barack Obama was running for office, there were many people who said that Barack Obama is a Muslim, therefore he should not run as a candidate for the White House. How can we have a Muslim as a president? How can a Muslim dare to candidate himself and to run for the Democratic Party? Those people knew very well that Barack Obama was not a Muslim. Those people knew very well that Barack Obama did not adhere to the Islamic faith. Their intentions were for himself, the president, his campaign managers, his staffers, and the entire Democratic Party to repeatedly and continuously separate Barack Obama from Islam. Barack is not a Muslim. He was never a Muslim. He does not practice or adhere to the Islamic faith. And by that, condemning the religion of Islam, putting down the Muslims. And I could not help but to think that no one turned around and said, so what if he was a Muslim? So what if he were to be a Muslim? As long as he's a good candidate, as long as he's the man for the job, then we're going to endorse him regardless of his faith. Whether he's Muslim or Catholic or Protestant or whatever he may be. Pew, a very famous research center based in the United States of America, recently published some shocking numbers and polls in regards to Islam and Muslims in the West and specifically in America. Pew suggests that 56% of Muslims living in the West find that life has become more difficult for them after 9/11. Living in the West has become more difficult for them after 9/11. 55% of Muslims in the United States of America said in the past 12 months they have faced at least 5 acts of hostility. 28% of Muslims said at least in the past 12 months, they have faced a minimum of 12 acts of suspicion towards them. 25% of Muslims said that their local mosques, their local houses of worship have been subject to one form or another of hate-mongering or vandalism. That is why such notions have left Muslims living in the West with an identity crisis. What do I mean? You find that some Muslims living in the West have completely separated themselves from their faith, have completely isolated themselves from their local Islamic houses of worship, have completely ignored their religious teachings. So if his name is Tariq, for example, he changes his name to Terry, goes and works 12, 14 hours a day, treats his home like a bed and breakfast, goes home, sleeps, wakes up in the morning, has breakfast, takes a shower, he's out the door. Not even one day out of the week is dedicated to God. Not even one day out of the week is dedicated to the spiritual nourishment. Not even 1 hour of the week is dedicated to feed his spirituality, or to focus on his family, or to focus on the values invested within the Holy Quran. So 10 years, 20 years, 15 years pass. When his kids get in trouble with the law, or something wrong happens, then he looks for the local masjid. Where is the masjid? Where is the sheikh? Where is the sayyid? Let's go talk to him. Or, after working for so long and ignoring the home, and ignoring the place where you ought to find a peace of mind, when his wife decides to divorce him, he looks for the local masjid. And there are others on the other end of the spectrum. What do I mean? There are people living in the West. He goes to work, he goes to school, he rides the bus every single day, wearing his short dishdasha, long beard, carrying a miswak, and the time of salah he has to pray. Whether it's the middle of a park, whether it's a restaurant, if he doesn't find space on top of his car. Believe me, I've seen it. In New York City, I've seen people pray on top of their taxis, cabs. Allah says pray. Pray on time. But Allah also tells you pray in the right place. Allah tells you give respect to the place where you're about to perform your salah. Don't make a mockery out of Islam. Don't make a mockery out of salah. Don't make a mockery out of the most noble act in the religion of Islam, which is prayers. As-salatu amudud din. In qubilat qubila ma siwaha. وَإِنْ رُدَّتْ رُدَّ مَا سِوَاهَا. I recall just before I came, one of the brothers sent me a YouTube video of a rapper who is part of our community, still is part of our community. And he has a music video, a rap music video. And interestingly, in his rap music video, he has Muslim girls dancing for him. Some of them are without hijab, and some of them are wearing hijab, dancing in a rap music video. While their parents are probably a permanent member, while their parents are probably permanent members at a masjid or a Husayniyah. Some people believe when I come to the West, my job and my responsibility is to take the welfare check, to live in welfare housing, to go once a year to Arba'een, go to Karbala, do the ziyarah of Imam Hussein, and every day gather in my local masjid, local Husayniyah, discuss politics. And they have completely ignored their children. They have completely ignored the most important and vital factor of their lives. We should learn from Ahlul Bayt the way we speak to our children, the way we advise them and admonish them, and set exemplary figures for them. What do I mean? Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Mawla al-Muwahhideen Ali ibn Abi Talib looks at his son Imam al-Hasan, and he says to him, Bunayya Hasan, oh my son Hasan, wajadtuka ba'dhi, I find you to be a part of me. Wajadtuka ba'dhi, then he says, La wallahi bal wajadtuka kulli. No, I see you as all of my existence, all of my heart. Hatta idha shay'an asabaka asaban. If I see that you face any sort of difficulty, I share those moments of difficulty with you. It's not just enough for you to tell your son or your daughter, Baba, I love you once a week and that's it. This I love you is meaningless. Especially some people, they're used to it on the phone. I love you. What is this I love you? This means nothing. Love is when you spend time with your children. You spend quality time with them, not just time. And you don't condemn them. There are parents who do not use words of affirmation with their children, words of inspiration with their children. We find that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Imam al-Hussein speaking to Ali al-Akbar, Amir al-Mu'mineen speaking to his children, he inspires them, he motivates them. When Imam al-Hussein looks at Ali al-Akbar and he is about to leave, he says, oh my son, life will become ugly after you. Life will become disliked without you. You're everything that I have. If you take your son to a basketball game, if he keeps telling you, Baba, attend my game, attend this match, come and watch me play. So you go once a month, once a week, you spend an hour of your time watching your son play, even if he's not good. Tell him, Baba, you're so good. I think you have a future in this. You are the best player. Inspire him so that when he grows up, he has self-esteem. He can stand on his own feet. He's not afraid of society. He doesn't consider himself as a mockery and a failure. But what do? Baba, I'm not bringing you again. Why, Baba? Because you're just wasting my time and your time. Why? You really think you can play basketball? You really think you can play baseball? You really think that you're good at this? What's the future of this sport, Baba? You should go become a doctor. You're never going to become a professional basketball player. He's only 10. He's only 12. Today, if he thinks he's going to become the next Michael Jordan, it's okay. Let him live his dreams. The separation between the parents and their children has played an enormous role in this identity crisis. And that is why tonight, I would like to specifically shed light on this topic in the following manner. Number one, when it comes to our identity as Muslims living in the West, we will review the opinion of Muslims living in Muslim countries in the Middle East in regards to Muslims in the West. Number two, we will look at the interactions of Muslims. How how are we ought to act with other non-Muslims in the West. Number 3, we will examine Muslims living in the West. At the 4th stage, we will examine Western Muslims. And 5th, what is our responsibility and role as individuals living in the Western society? وَصَلُّوا عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ. Many of us have family back home. Many of us have fathers, mothers, cousins, aunts, uncles that live in the Middle East. So I, as an American, when I tell them I'm an American Muslim, or if I'm British, I tell them I'm a British Muslim, or you tell them I'm a Kiwi Muslim. So you're an American? What a sellout. You're British? What a sellout. Don't you know the crimes that they have committed in Middle Eastern countries and Muslim countries? So that makes me think twice before I call myself an American Muslim, a British Muslim, a Kiwi Muslim. I shy away from even taking part of the society. I don't want the condemnation. I don't want to live with the taboo of having to be labeled هذا صار أمريكي. But let me tell you something. First of all, we live in a completely different environment. We live in a completely different society. We have a completely different responsibility. Our calling is completely different than them. They look at the West differently than we do. They only focus at the Western foreign policy. And by me being an American Muslim, I don't have to agree with the American foreign policy. That's not required of me. Neither it is belittled or looked down upon if I, as an American Muslim, critique the American foreign policy. It's not required of me to come and agree, for example, the President or the Congress 100%. No. Second of all, more importantly, we have different challenges. We face different laws. There are many laws that in the West, that if you were to ask an average Muslim living in the Middle East or Middle Eastern country, they would have absolutely no clue. For example, positive discrimination. That's a law that's been passed in most Western countries, including New Zealand. What is it? There are groups of minorities, of people who face discrimination because of anything, because it's cultural sometimes, because it's nationalistic, because of religion, because of ethnicity. And there is a law that says we have to create equality for those individuals. We have to equally employ them. We have to equally give them jobs. We have to equally give them admission to schools. We have to equally grant them citizenship so that we establish a society based on equality. Some of you may have come here 10 years ago. Some of you 15 years ago. Some of you 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But now you're all part of this society. Every time you get in and out of this country, what do they tell you? Welcome home. Where were you? You say, I went to Iraq. That's where you were born. You went to Pakistan. That's where you were born. You went to Afghanistan. That's where you were born. When you come home, they don't say, oh, how was home? Did you have fun? They say, no. Welcome home. This is your home. You have adopted this land as your country, as your home. Many of you, if not every single one of you, will live your whole life here and probably die here as well. So we face a completely different calling. We have a completely different responsibility. And many of the Middle Eastern so-called Islamic countries, you can live there for 60 years and never become a citizen. You can own a skyrise in that country and never become a citizen. You can serve as a professor or a doctor for 50 years in that country and still be treated as a foreigner. We have a different responsibility. And let me say this, we should not wait for my cousin or my uncle or my grandfather in the Middle East to give me a green light to become part of this society. To tell me it's okay for you to be part of this community. Number two, we as Muslims sometimes look at the West as non-Muslims. True? But not every non-Muslim is non-Islamic. Not every non-Muslim is non-Islamic. There are some non-Muslims who are way more Islamic than thousands of Muslims. There are non-Muslims that stand for the Islamic teachings a lot better than many Muslims. How many non-Muslims you know that have dedicated at least part of their wealth, part of their time, part of their career to go and travel in Africa and impoverished countries to help the poor, to help the needy, to help the orphans? How many musicians do you know that travel at least once every 10 years? Some of them travel for a month within the year. They go to impoverished areas and dedicate their time for humanity. How many non-Muslims do you know that will never lie, that will never cheat, that take transparency in their jobs very seriously? And how many Muslims do you know that pray every single day but they lie? Every single day but they cheat? How many do you know that carry the name of a Muslim but they're non-Islamic? Today the world sees them. Daesh, ISIS, Salah, they pray. Salah, they take an hour for them. Quran, they read. Beards, mashallah, they have a ton. Their flag, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. Their name, Al-Dawla Al-Islamiyya. But are they Muslim? Do they have anything to do with Islam? No. Similarly, some people say it, well, I really enjoy having my kids be surrounded by Muslim kids. I want to always hang out with Muslims. And you know, I don't know about this whole intermingling. I tell them, okay, good, very good. But those Muslims who you're hanging out with, or your children are making friends with, do they only carry the name of Islam, or are they Islamic? Do they teach your kids that prayer and honesty and fidelity and nobility go hand in hand? Or no, pray, but do insurance fraud? Pray, but take the welfare check and put it in your pocket without having an under-table job. This is haram. This is haqqun nas. This is the right that belongs to people. Tomorrow on the Day of Judgment, Allah will say, I forgive that which you had sinned between me and you. Between you and your Lord. But taking the rights of the people, I will not forgive. They have to forgive you. Isn't this the teachings of Islam? More importantly, I find that sometimes some youth, when they come towards religion, when they come towards Islam, you see his boss, he's telling you, I really enjoyed. You went to Hajj? Bless you. You're doing it young. You see a woman wearing hijab in Western countries. Some people congratulate her. Some non-Muslims declare a hijab day and they wear with Muslim kids in unis, in hospitals, in the workplace. But her aunt, her Muslim friend comes and tells her, Ammu, why? You're still too young. You should wait, become 60, 70 years old. And then wear hijab when hijab is no longer required. Or Ammu, why are you going to Hajj? You're only 25. You should wait when you become 65 so they take you with a wheelchair. Now you should focus on buying a house, buying a car, getting married, going to vacation, seeing Europe, seeing Hawaii, Vegas, and then you think of Hajj. But you see, the non-Muslim will be the first to tell you, if you need 10 days off, I will help you do that. I'm your boss as a non-Muslim. You need to go for a pilgrimage? I can help you out. There are some Muslim employers, on the other hand, who will tell you, why? Where are you going? Karbala? Shirk? There are people in Muslim countries, when they go to Karbala to visit Imam Hussein, they have to get their passport stamped in another separate paper. Because as soon as the passport is stamped with Iraq, they sack him out of his job. Why? Because he went to visit the grandson of Rasulullah. The same person goes to Vegas 10 years, nothing happens. But once he goes and visits the grandson of Imam of Rasulullah, he visits Imam Hussein, there's a question mark. The same person at work, if he doesn't pray, it's okay. If he prays and he prays according to the school of Ahlul Bayt, there's a question mark on him. How many non-Muslims will tell you, if you need a place at work, we will provide that place for you to pray? And how many Muslims would be afraid to pray in front of other Muslims because they don't want to be judged? So we have to make a clear distinction. Many of them are non-Muslims, yes, but they're not non-Islamic. Number two, there are others who will look at Islam, and because of the stereotypes, because of the propaganda against Islam, will dislike you as Muslims, will dislike Islam. And that's where your challenge comes in, to coexist, to change their paradigms when it comes to what they see as Islam, something that is scary. You have to be able to remove that phobia from their hearts. Not by you compromising your belief. Not by you changing your ways. You stay who you are and try to convince him otherwise. I recall one of my family members said he was riding a plane, and next to him happened to be a football player. American football. Those guys are huge. So he said as soon as he got on the plane, he received a call from Iraq, so he was speaking loud. And then he sat down, he said, this football player looked at him and he said, I want to show you my daughter's photo. Okay. This little girl, he said, oh, she's beautiful. He said, I just want to tell you, if you have any specific plans, you know, you should not go with them, because I haven't seen her for a very long time. He said, what are you talking about? I don't get it. And then he realized, oh my God, this person's probably thinking I'm going to hijack the plane. I personally had a lecture somewhere, well, Houston, Texas, and I was leaving back to California, so I went from the lecture straight to the airport, and it was on 9/11. So I sat next to a person, he looked at me and he said, welcome to America, the land of Christianity. I ignored him. I said, you know, this guy, ignore him. And he kept going. I said, listen, first of all, you don't have to speak like that. I can understand every word that comes out of your mouth. Second of all, America is not the land of Christianity. It's the land of tolerance. It's the land of coexistence. It's the land of religious freedom. So he said, yeah, but you know, you Muslims did this. I said, okay. Where's the problem? Let's talk about it. He said, Quran. Yeah, your Quran is scary, this, that. I said, okay, give me the verses. Let's talk about them. So he gave me a couple of verses, and we talked about them. Then I told him, do you have a Bible? He said, yes, I do. I'm a pastor. I said, okay, can you grab your Bible? He said, yeah, sure. So I started giving him quotes. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse number 1, Deuteronomy 17:1. He kept opening them. I said, why don't you read them? He said, no, well, I can explain those verses. I said, I can also explain my Quran. I also have a perspective. What gives you the right over me? When you shy away from such responsibilities, when you shy away from your faith, when you isolate yourself, that's where the problem grows and grows and grows. But if we take a list of the top 10 most often misunderstood subjects or notions about Islam, and we make sure we study them, we understand them, we memorize them, so that when we are in discussions with others, we're able to explain to them. We're able to justify our stance. Third type of Muslims are the Muslims who only physically live in this country or in the West. And there are Muslims in the West. He's just a person in the West that happens to be Muslim. What do I mean? I mean they only physically live here. Physically, his passport changed. Once it was Afghani, now it's become Kiwi. Once it was Iraqi, now it's become Kiwi. Once it was Iranian, now it's become Kiwi. He once carried a Pakistani passport, now he's carrying an American passport. Physically, he lives in America. Mentally, he lives back home. Mentally, he lives in Iraq. Mentally, he lives in Pakistan. Mentally, he lives in Afghanistan. Only location has changed for him, nothing else. Even the masjid, he wants to create a small cultural center for cultural festivals. So every time he goes to the masjid, he reminds himself of back home. We can't afford flying every weekend to Baghdad, to Karbala, to Qom, to Mashhad, to Kabul. So what do? We create a small Kabul. We create a small Baghdad. So every time I go, wallah, I feel like, Allah, it's so nice to be back home. It's so nice to eat the taman bagilla. Only physically they live here. One of the brothers told me, say it. We had elections in our country. And the same time, Iraq had elections. Every time I went to the masjid, they were talking about the Iraqi elections. He said, in our own country, the elections were made, a new government took place, they started, and this person didn't even recognize once that there's an election in this country. Only talks about elections in Iraq. This person only physically lives there. Mentally he's in Iraq, he should go back. And this is what happens when youth come every day. They live in this society, they go to school in this society, they work in this society, they mingle in this society. They live in this society. When they come to the masjid, it's as if they've gone 10,000 miles away. And that's a big problem, especially in our masjids, in our houses of worship. Allah says to the Arabs, لَقَدْ بَعَثَ فِيكُمْ رَسُولًا مِنْكُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ رَسُولًا مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ. When he speaks about, for example, Salih, he says he was the brethren. He was one of them. He was one of the boys. He grew up with them. He spoke their language. He knew everything about their culture. So they accepted him. They welcomed him. They wanted him. There wasn't a culture clash when Rasulullah spoke. He did not speak Chinese with a translator to Arabic. No, he was one of them. He was one of them. Every community was appointed a prophet from amongst them. There is a reason for that. But when it comes to us, our masjids, what do? We import. We import. If you import somebody that's going to speak your language, that's going to talk about your issues, that's going to solve your problems. He's not going to talk about the problems of back home that you have really nothing to do with. Try to make your houses of worship centers for learning, centers for awareness. Try to motivate some of the youth within the community, go to study in the hawza, to become scholars, to come back to your community and serve your community. Motivate them, choose them, help them. Number 4, I want to talk about Muslims in the West that have adopted their countries as their land. They had found, I came from Iraq, 16 members of my family were killed. I've come from Afghanistan, Taliban murdered us. I ran away to have a better living. I came here, my children went to school. I came here, I received health care. I came here, I found respect. I came here, I found tolerance. I want this to be my country. I'm not ashamed to declare that. I'm not ashamed to own that. I want to be an American Muslim. I want to be a British Muslim. I want to be a Kiwi Muslim. I don't see anything wrong with that. I want to put the American flag in my masjid. I want to put the Kiwi flag in my masjid. I don't see anything wrong with that. Now you might tell me, Sayyid, but you know all the problems in the West. You want us to just completely become westernized? There's a difference. I agree that within the West, there are teachings that are completely dangerous to family values, to morality, to ethics. The youth, what do they look for? MTV. MTV shows them Justin Bieber. Every day he's getting arrested. MTV shows them to demean and to belittle women. Woman becomes a piece of entertainment. It teaches them that you have to become rich by any means necessary. Yeah, I agree. And some Western nations, 60% of children were born out of wedlock. 60%. I don't want to talk about God and marriage and church and masjid. But those 60% of the kids, when they grow up, they're not going to have a dad. Who's my dad? I don't know. What happened to him? I've never seen him. So what happened, Mom? Try to explain that to a kid. He's going to feel a gap within him. A lot of those children end up seeking a place somewhere else to justify their existence in gangs, behind bars, in crime. And they look at people that are in similar condition that they had as their role models. And there are plenty of them, plenty of rappers, plenty of gangsters that come from the hood, that can be the role models for them. So yeah, I agree, that's dangerous. I also agree, say, what about, this kid, he comes 12th grade, he says, I want to go to the prom. I want to go to the 12th year party, graduation party, there's drinking, there's drugs, there's all sorts of, I agree. So Sayyid, what do? Do we let them become Western? Yes. What's the solution? You tell them, look, there is no way that you can convince them they're not Kiwis. They're not Americans. They're not British. They're not Western. There's no way you can do that. But you can choose a path within the West that is suitable for them, that is compatible with Islam. The West is not all about, gangsters and rap and rock stars and... No, it's not about that. Tell him instead of becoming the next 50 Cent or Britney Spears, become the next Bill Gates. Become the next dean of your school. Become the next ambassador of peace in the United Nations. That's also part of the West. Don't try to fight their identity. we have to understand one thing, brothers and sisters. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he dealt with Quraysh, idol worshippers, pagans. If you think that there's indecency today, go look at the West. Go look at Arabia 1,400 years ago. They were truly like animals. Even an animal does not kill its own child. They bury their own daughters alive. One of them takes 10 wives, 15 wives, 20 wives. Then when he dies, his son inherits his own stepmothers. Like inheriting, a piece of furniture. Rasulullah lived in such a society, but yet he never stopped calling himself Mekki. He never stopped calling himself Madani. Ana ibn Makkah wa Mina, ana ibn Zamzam wa Safa. He never changed his identity. He didn't say, well, look at those Meccans, then I'm not going to be a Meccan. Look at those people of Medina, I don't want to be part of it. No. Rasulullah came. When he came and he owned it, then he changed it. If you always look as an outsider, look at them. No. It's not them. It's us. And then try to speak and advise from within. They will listen to you. But if you always speak as an outsider, if I as an American, I have to deal with this most likely, probably more than you do. Our American foreign policy is horrible. But if I only come and assume at the American foreign policy, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, they say, look at this guy, all he knows how to do is critique. But if I one day come and speak of the top universities in the world being in America, second having freedom, third having security, fourth having equality, fifth, sixth, then I say I also have a problem with the American foreign policy. They say, good. He's part of us. He's telling us. He's teaching us. So what is my responsibility? Last item on my list. What is our responsibility as Muslims? Our responsibility is just like we enjoy the good, just like we enjoy their schools, just like we enjoy their airports, just like we enjoy security. Brothers and sisters, just imagine you're all here. You're sitting here. You're doing your religious duties. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to hold you responsible as long as you're law-abiding citizens. As long as you don't break the law. They even help you. You give donation to the center, they give you back a check in the mail, right? So just like you own the good, just like you take the good, you enjoy the good, take responsibility in fixing the wrong. Have an input. Become part of the society. And I want to go back to the topic that I began discussing this lecture with, Islamophobia. Don't ignore Islamophobia. Don't say I have no responsibility. Let them be afraid of Muslims. You know what the problem is going to be? Today, if they search me at an airport because of my name, tomorrow they'll do the same thing to your child. Then they'll do it to his grandkid. For 200 years you'll be separated from the rest of the people. That's your responsibility. Don't make your centers only a place where I congregate 10 days of Muharram. Some people, alhamdulillah, it's not even 10 days, it's 2 days. That's all they have to do with religion. 2 days. 2 days. Tasu'ah, Ashura, Eid. 3 days out of the year, they're present in the majlis. The rest, no, they have nothing to do with it. The school of Imam Hussein teaches responsibility. The school of Imam Hussein teaches us the spirit of reform, the spirit of rejuvenation. The school of Imam Hussein teaches us how to give life to the ignorant, how to remove misconceptions. We come to the school of Imam Hussein, contemplate on Hussein, contemplate on his message, contemplate on his generosity. Imam Hussein did not sacrifice himself so that Jawad Qazwini would wear black for him. Imam Hussein set an example for Jawad Qazwini to follow him and emulate him. Imam Hussein did not give his sacrifice so that I come and shed tears for him. Imam Hussein set an example for me to follow. Let's not go away from the spirit of Imam Hussein and the spirit of Ashura and get busy with the other cultural activities. I have nothing against them, but let us not lose focus of why is it that Imam Hussein embarked on that journey. إني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا بل خرجت لإصلاح أمة جدي رسول الله لكي آمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر وأسير على سيرة جدي وأبي وهذا يزيد رجل فاسق فاجر شارب للخمر قاتل للنفس المحترمة وقد ركزني بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة وهيهات من الذلة يأبى الله لنا ذلك ورسوله والمؤمنون. He says, the reason why I have embarked on this journey is to perfect the ummah with decency, with akhlaq, with morality. That is why his grandfather sees him and he says, Hussein al-Minni. I came and I perfected your akhlaq, and once again Hussein has to remind you of that. And if it wasn't for Hussein's sacrifice, then faith and religion would have been in jeopardy. And Imam Hussein was surrounded by noblemen, superstars. Imam Hussein was surrounded by schools, monuments of bravery, monuments of honesty, monuments of haqq and justice. And amongst them was indeed no other than Sayyidina wa Mawlana wa Muqtadana wa Habibuna Babul Hawa'ij Qamarul Ashira Saqi Utasha Karbala Abul Fadl al-Abbas. And I really, when I stand in front of this personality, I really don't know what to say. I feel that I can talk about almost any other personality, but this personality always leaves me with having to feel I have never given him justice. He came to his brother. He says to him, Ya Akha, Ya Aba Abdullah, I see all those enemies. I cannot tolerate. My chest is full of agony. Ya Aba Abdullah, allow me to go. And Abbas, mind you, was born to serve Hussein. Amir al-Mu'mineen, his father, tells him, Ya Aqil, go find me a woman that's born of lions, that's going to give birth to a lion, that I'm going to save for my son Hussein. And when he was born, what did Amir al-Mu'mineen do? He took him. He smiled, then he kissed his right hand. He kissed his left hand. His mother, Fatima al-Baneen, came to him. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I see you kissing his right, kissing his left. Why do you cry? Amir al-Mu'mineen saw that day. So he came. He said, Ya Aba Abdullah, allow me to go. Imam Hussein says, In kana wala bud. If you really want to go, then go and bring some water for those children who were calling al-atash, who had not drank water for so long. Amongst them was Ruqayyah, amongst them was Rabab, amongst them was Sukaynah, amongst them was Fatima al-Surra, amongst them was Abdullah al-Radi'. So he came, the son of Abu Talib, the son of the Lion of Allah, came. He stood in front of his brother Hussein. Imam Hussein, the Imam, this great Imam Hussein, looks at him as he's about to ride, as he's about to leave, and he says, Ya Abul Fadl, may I be the sacrifice for you. Look at the greatness of this personality, Abul Fadl Abbas. Look at the greatness of Bab al-Hawa'ij. So, Imam al-Hussein went and he stood next to the tent of the woman and the children, telling them that your uncle Abbas now has gone towards the Euphrates. No one dares to face Abbas. No one dares to come in front of him because he reminded them of his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen. He reminded them of his father in Khaybar. He reminded them of his father in every other battle. They waited until this man went inside the water. He wanted to drink. He felt the cool of the water. Then he also remembered the thirst of his brother Hussein, the thirst of his Mawla Hussein, the thirst of his master Hussein. So he says, Ya nafs min ba'd al-Hussein huni. Ya nafs min ba'd al-Hussein huni. وبعده ما كنت أن تكوني هذا الحسين وارد المنون وتشربين بارد المعين. So he put the water back. ملأ القربة. He put water in the basket, in the bucket that he had. He sat on the back of his horse and he went back to the camp of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Imam Hussein is telling Sukayna, Ruqayya, Rabah, Fatima al-Sughra that your uncle Abbas is returning back with water. Then they surrounded him from every angle. One of them came from the back and he amputated the right arm of Abul Fadl Abbas. Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini. Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini inni yuhami abadan an dini wa an imamin sadiq al-yaqini. He took the bucket in his left, they suffered his left. Imam Hussein, traditions say that he sat down. So the kids asked him, Ya Aba Abdullah, what is happening? We see that your face is changing. He says, your uncle Abul Fadl is in danger. So he took the bucket in his mouth. Imam Hussein had not given him permission to fight. Imam Hussein told him, go bring water. So he was just out there to execute the command of his Mawla, the command of his Imam. He was rushing back towards the tents of Imam Hussein. A man came and he shot an arrow in the eyes of Abul Fadl Abbas. He stood hayran. He stood, his horse paused. فجاءه رجل من خلفه وضربه بالعمود على رأسه فسقط من على الفرس مناديا يا أخاه أدرك أخاك. When he was about to fall for the very first time in his life, he called Hussein as his brother. He says, oh my brother, come to my rescue. Imam Hussein then stood up and he said, Ya akha, الآن انكسر ظهري وقلت حيلتي الآن شمت بي عدوي عمد الحديد بكربلاء خسف القمر من عاشمين فلتبكي العليا مضار فمشى إلي سبط ينعم كسر تلعان ظهري يا حبيب ومعيني. He came, he put his head in his lap, he looked at him. Abul Fadl Abbas was in the last moments. So he says, oh man, give me some time so I say my goodbyes to my brother Hussein. He says, oh Abul Fadl, I am indeed your brother Hussein. He says to him, Abul Fadl, allow me to carry you back to the tent. allow me to take you back to the tent. He said, no, I will not go back to the tent and have to face Ruqayya, Rabab and Sukaina and Kulthum and the children without water. Imam Hussein went back. He does not know how to tell Zainab. He does not know how to tell the woman, the children, that you no longer have protection in this camp. As long as Abbas was there, then you're protected. So he went to the tent of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. He took down the tent of Abu al-Fadl as a sign that now I am left for my enemies to attack me. And Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, what does he say? We call him Babu al-Hawa'ij. Today, wallah, not just Muslims, Christians, Jews will be going towards Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas with their hawa'ij, the son of al-Baneen. Allahu Akbar. They returned back to Karbala. It's okay if you cry for Imam Hussein. I want to get a tear out of you. So on the day of judgment, you say, oh Allah, I want this tear to save me. I cried for no other reason but for my love for Ahlul Bayt. They returned back to Medina. Sayyida Zainab went inside her home. She was very fatigued. She did not want to meet anyone. A lady came to her. She said, Sayyidati ya bint Rasulullah, ya bint Amir al-Mu'mineen. There is a woman behind the door. She wants to meet you. She said, who is she? She says, my name is al-Baneen. So as Sayyida Zainab permitted her, she came in. Sayyida Zainab wanted to tell her that we returned without Abbas. So she says, wa akhah wa Abbasa. al-Baneen responds, wa walada wa Husayna. نسألك اللهم وندعوك ونقسم عليك 10 times باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إذا جرت الدمعة فدونك دونك في الدعاء. That's the hadith from Imam al-Sadiq that says, if there is a tear that comes out of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then ask. أسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم 10 times يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم. اللهم بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين والتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. Oh Allah, every man and woman present in this gathering with a hajah, with a dua, give them their hajat. اللهم أحينا حياة محمد وآل محمد وأمتنا ممات محمد وآل محمد ولا تفرق بيننا وبينهم طرفة عين أبدا. اللهم أحينا حياة القرآن وأمتنا على القرآن وارزقنا شفاعة القرآن. اللهم ارزقنا زيارة الحسين. اللهم ارزقنا شفاعة الحسين. Oh Allah, every mu'min and mu'mina with an illness, give them cure. Oh Allah, remove the whispers of shaitan away from our hearts. Allahumma ajil ثم عجل لمولانا الفرج والعافية والنصر وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا، واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء وخدمة الحسين نهدي جميعا ثواب السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.